Afternoon and welcome to today's edition of the Citizens Chat Show on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today is the 25th of January 2024 and we are taking stock of NRM's 38 years in power, looking at its major achievements but also the shortcomings in the very, very long journey, which some people can call short now, helping us understand but also detail the achievements and the shortcomings is a panel of distinguished citizens of this country whom I will introduce. Starting with my extreme left is retired Major Awich Pollar, the Director External Affairs of the National Resistance Movement. Major, congratulations and you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you to my colleagues and thank you to our visitors as we reach yet another year of achievement.
Thank you.
You are welcome back. We missed you last time.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I also missed you, but greetings from South Africa. The matter we had was really substantial. It was about our brothers and sisters of Cuba. America has blockaded them for 60 years, and yet the entire 193 countries in UN have voted 30 times. 1, 2, 3, 30 to lift the blockade. In all the votes, it's only US and Israel which votes again. It's unanimous decision by the world.
Thank you for that information, and perhaps you'll give us a little more details quite later. On the show, we also have from Uganda People's Congress, the Honorable Joaeph Ochieno. Honorable, you're most welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, but the subject is very tormenting, discussing 38 wasted years of NRA, which 25th they came to power on the same day when tragedy hit this country in 1971 with Idi Amin. They chose to delay it by 24 hours, but now 38 years, still going strong as they say themselves and terrible. But yes, great that Comrade Awich went to South Africa to join in solidarity with all our colleagues and comrades on the question of the Cuban occupation. It just happens that, unfortunately, Uganda under Mr. Museveni has been the #1 inspector on behalf of Anglo-America that blocked Cuba. So what a contradiction there.
Thank you, Honorable. We also have Dr. Robert Ojambo, the head of the Faculty of History and Political Science, Kyambogo University. Doctor, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Philip.
And last but not least is Dr. Sarah Bireete, the Executive Director, the Center for Constitutional Governance. Doctor, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. At an appropriate time, I will complain about gender discrimination, even in introductions.
Can I actually join on that? Honestly, as a matter of interest, it sort of hit me. It was just continuous flow. Every time we're going, where is it going to start? So it has been starting from the extreme left. No, but no, yeah, we need some work.
Is yours also gender discrimination or party discrimination?
No, actually, as a matter of interest, gender discrimination. No, in UPC, we're very, very particular about this, and as I'm a feminist. But good enough, Sarah raised this. These are very important points, actually, that Sarah and I, and of course, all of us here are generally very committed to this. So, but it may be a mild job, but very.
We serve the best.
Thank you.
The best for the last.
Amen.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Now, taking stock of NRM's 38 years in power in this country of Uganda, I want to start with you, Major Awich Pollar, who is from the NRM. Invite us to the celebration by telling us what we have to celebrate.
Thank you so much. You are all invited here and now. In 1986, one of the first comments Museveni made was, this is not a mere change of guards. This is a fundamental change. And I believe we have lived to that words, or to those words. At the back of his mind, he had the routine guard duties in the army or in the security, where if, for example, you are guarding a judge at the gate, The police, Corporal Okello is brought in the morning, he guards the whole day. In the evening, they bring Corporal to Musime, guards till morning, the next day they change another. So that is just changing guards, but nothing fundamental. So a lot has been done to stand to those words of, this is not a mere change of guards, but a fundamental change. So what are the achievements then? I keep mentioning something we take for granted, that in the 38 years, Uganda exists as Uganda. The cutoff points in the constitution is that a Ugandan is a person who was a Ugandan or grandparents were members of the indigenous community as on 28th Feb 1926. That is to say when the final shape of Uganda took place. Kisoro was brought from Rwanda, West Nile was brought from Congo, we lost something to Kenya, you know, the current geography that you know. So if you belong to that, then you're Ugandan. Now, in the 38 years, many countries have died. Ethiopia lost Eritrea. Sudan lost South Sudan. Yugoslavia broke to the extent that at one time a piece, Serbia and Montenegro were playing one cup in quarterfinal. When they reached quarterfinal, back home they broke again into two. So we are laughing, said, now if you win the World Cup, where will you take the cup? So many countries ceased to be. So the fact that NRM held the country in one piece itself is an achievement, because you don't take it for granted, especially when we have countless examples of countries which are broken. The other thing is infrastructure. You can value in monetary terms, because the roads can be costed. How much does it cost? You can see the value of the roads that we have now compared to the past. Well, virtually all surrounding neighboring countries are accessible by tarmac. In the east, you can access Kenya, I think, by 3 or 4 tarmac roads. Tanzania by 2 or so. Rwanda by 2 or 3 tarmac roads. Congo, we also access. Sudan, you can access by 3 or so tarmac roads. Before that, there was no access. Maybe Malaba was there. The long River Nile had only 3 bridges: Jinja, Karuma, and Pakwach. We have added several bridges on River Nile. You also come to about life, because all this we are talking of, sometimes you get lost in statistics, GDP, whatever, this what, but the truth is the life expectancy has been increased. It used to be 42 when we came to power, now it is 62 for men and 64 for ladies. And not only do we live long, you can live long in misery, but an independent research not connected to NRM has proved that in East Africa, we are the happiest. So what is more than all the data and whatever that comes in to feed in happiness? Connected to that, population has grown. Population just doesn't grow for the sake. For the population to grow, there are things that need to be done. Controlling maternal birth, child mortality, to make sure children don't die, and controlling adult death. For example, it is common knowledge that public health alone, preventive health, can do much more than even swallowing tablets, which is curative. So the fact that government comes up with programs like sanitation, even in the villages, build toilets, that can make a big change. Did you know that even research has proved that even mere policy of hand washing alone can save millions of lives, just keeping hands clean? So public health investment has been there, toilet, public distribution of mosquito nets, and those has reduced death and therefore has made the population to increase. You have things like human capital. A lot of investment has been put in human capital, has been developed. How do you measure human capital? The number of doctors that are there, the number of engineers, the number of lawyers, and basically the O-level certificates acquired, the A-level certificates acquired, the university education, in terms of human capital, in the past you would have a graduate in a whole county. Otuke, a county which is now a district like Otuke, could take sometimes 5 years without a graduate, or even 10 without a graduate, because they were accountable anyway. You had Omara Tubu, a little Mara, you had Obong the PS, who else? The entire district. So the human capital has been developed. Democracy, we now, the constitution provides power belong to the masses, and we vote and we vote. If you're not satisfied, you go to court. If you go to court and you find you were wrongly misled to court, you withdraw like Noop did.
Thank you, Major. You mentioned a couple of things. I want to bring in Dr. Sarah here. Most of the things you talk about are things to be enjoyed by Ugandans, and Dr. Sarah is really close to Ugandans. She understands the people of Uganda. Doctor, Major sends you an invitation to the party, and he says the NRM has improved everything, the population, the infrastructure, talk about the existence of the state of Uganda, and a couple of other things. Are you attending the party today?
I'm not enjoying any of the things Fande talks about. He talks about infrastructure, but in Kampala, potholes have finished our second-hand vehicles. We are not rich enough to buy first-hand vehicles that can jump over potholes. Most of us are driving second-hand Japanese cars. Others are driving third or fourth-hand, buying from people who bought from bonds. Maybe the mechanics are celebrating and walking all the way to the bank, but owners of vehicles in Kampala, we don't have roads. We no longer drive on left or right. We drive on what is left of the roads. So what infrastructure are we talking about when the city is rotting in potholes, not just potholes? Recently, we saw a demonstration just to emphasize the magnitude of the road on our roads. And the parts of Kampala became banana plantations because there are no roads, they're just holes. So when you plant, even if people are planting trees, it would become a forest. So it became a banana plantation just last week. When you talk about democracy, democracy is the point number one on the 10 points program for NRM. And on the 15 points program, there is restoration of democracy. I just want to confirm for the viewers what number exactly it is. And I happened to read Mzee Changomacho's book. Mzee Changomacho was a part of the architects. So restoration of democracy is point number one. And on the 15 points program by NRM, and point one on the 10 points program. And I just want to talk about that, and then the economy and corruption. Those points that feature democracy number one. The economy has 3 points under the 10 points program on consolidating national. Number 5, building independent, integrated, self-sustaining economy. Then there is number 7, elimination of corruption, and following an economic strategy of mixed economy, number 10 on the 10 points program. When you go to the 15 points program, we still have the economy and corruption. I will specify the numbers. Democracy has been the most vulgarized objective under NRM. Most vulgarized. Why do I say so? For NRM, democracy means keeping themselves in power by all means, or by hook or crook, or by hook and crook. I don't even know what it is. Because if you take a floor or you analyze the nature of democratic processes we've had in this country, let me start with the Constitution. The NRM regime has rewritten the 1995 Constitution as the citizens watch on. Once you tamper with the basic structure of the Constitution, power belongs to the people, but it belongs to the people to do what? To choose their leaders in regular, free and fair elections. Power to protect the Constitution against all forms of authority, including the president. Just start con number 1 and 2 and 3. Power belongs to the people. Power to protect the Constitution and the sovereignty of the Constitution. NRM has taken away that power from the feet. They just pick the feet of the citizens. You rewrite the Constitution, retain yourself in power, remove term limits and age limits, deny people a right to choose in free and fair elections. Just the last elections, I was among CS observers that should have been arrested for observing elections. They were accredited to do. And the commissioner of police who came to Hotel Africana to arrest us said, we suspect you people are going to tabulate results. We suspect you have satellite internet after the internet shut down, that this time went beyond to the extent that all our gadgets were reduced to analog. You could only make a call or send a text message. So whether you had the iPhone 14 or whatever, that phone was rendered to a torch for 3 days or more that we had complete internet shutdown. In the previous elections, you see how opposition strongholds were denied the right to vote. Just a polling station near where we are, ballot papers were delivered at 4 p.m. In Chuburi, where people were burning ballot papers, they were dropped after 2. Kampala received voting materials after 2, and they were supposed to vote between 2 to 5 p.m. What was the intention? The intention was to deny these opposition strongholds an opportunity to vote. People waited and got tired. Because majority people vote between 7 and 11 a.m. Majority. By midday, you have 60% minimum of voters will have cast their vote. People who wake up early to go and vote, they had left the station. People were tired. People had lost hope in the exercise called elections. And the turnout was low. And that was the purpose. Reduce voter turnout in opposition strongholds. So when you look at that kind of elections, that generates into kidnaps, torture, extrajudicial killings. We have spent 3 years with no justice for the Kampala killings, murdered during elections. You will still have missing persons. Last year, Parliament concluded business at the question of people who are no longer traced. So as much as you celebrate that Uganda is still one country, since independence, who has ever threatened a breakup for Uganda? For that to become a point of our celebration. When you say that Ugandans are happy, just yesterday I saw a comment by our Minister for International Relations.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, he said that if you are in Kampala and you cannot eat, then you are stupid. If you are in Uganda,
An idiot.
and you are an idiot.
You're an idiot.
Yes, those are the remarks he used. Karimajongo idiots. Karimajongo were saved by a church of Kayanja, to plant food and have a bit of food. But I'm not sure that the whole population is food secure. Are they idiots? If you look at people whose land is grabbed, evicted from land, rendered homeless, are they idiots? Maybe they are idiots because they don't have guns and they can't fight back. If you look at, the life of an ordinary Ugandan in this skyrocketing cost of living. Why do I say we have a skyrocketing cost of living? Uganda Revenue Authority has registered shortfalls of above 200 billion every quarter of this financial year, this calendar year. Shortfalls in URA mean a shrinking economic base.
Thank you,
So what
Doctor.
prosperity are we talking about?
Thank you. And Dr. Ojambo, when you listen to Major Awich and Dr. Sarah Bireete here, they are on two different sides. The Major is celebrating and Dr. Sarah is saying there's nothing to celebrate. In an objective view, how do you see the performance of the NRA/M in the 38 years?
Yeah, before one celebrates or does not, you just need to put the discussion in context. NRA did not come like it did not drop like a star or something. NRA came, or NRM came from a background. And that background, I have contributed in a book which is published under the title Africanness and the Constitutional Challenges. But my title is the 1995 Constitution as a tool for dictatorship in Uganda, an African dilemma of constitutionalism. And I was happy when he was quoting, my colleague there was quoting the words by Yoweri Museveni at the entrance of Parliament, or the podium at Parliament, when he had just, that was his first words to the media as a president of the Republic of Uganda. He quoted, but I want to quote it verbatim, that this came out of a number of issues. I think the president at that time was speaking from a certain tradition. We got independence in 1962. Okay, the process began in 1961 with the government that was formed of DP, which stayed for only 1 year. Then we proceeded into UPC, Kabaka Yeka government that came in 1962. Because people normally think it was just UPC. It was UPC alliance with Kabaka Yeka. That's what defeated the DP. Uganda was running very well up to 1966. If you check in 1964, $1, $1 shilling was $4. So you needed 1 shilling, you get $4, United States. And it was because of the economy. The economy was doing well. At that time, we were at the same time with Malaysia, with all these countries. We were moving together. Kenya was not even seeing us. Uganda was doing well because of coffee and cotton. 1966, there is a crisis, what is normally called Kabaka crisis, which later translated into Buganda crisis. And that crisis had been as a result of a poor constitution that had been written in 1962, which postponed two issues: the issue of the lost counties and the issue of the presidency, who would be the president. So in 1964, people are clamoring for this presidency plus the lost country. And that created a problem between the Kabaka and the then prime minister. Of course, the president had become in 1963, because the president was elected in 1963. So that created a problem. The crisis began. From there, 1967, there was a lot of problems up to 1971, when Amin takes over. I want to skip Amin's time because there is nothing much to talk about during that time in as far as state and the growth of a country. It was turmoil throughout. In 1980, they formed another government, which government was very unstable. By 1985, Uganda was almost a failed state under Tito Kello. They didn't have any direction. And that's when the rebels in Luero marched to Kampala and Museveni took up over. And that's what we're going to celebrate tomorrow. Having given that background, at that time, people were very hopeful. And the statements that were given by Yoweri Museveni on that podium, anybody who was listening, myself, I was a primary 3 kid, so I did not see them. But thanks to my mother, who took me to school, and I'm now able. They would really, they created a zeal, and that zeal was in the words that were said by Yoweri Museveni. In the 10 points program, which he used to convince people to rally behind him, and then he summarized this in his speech, and that speech we pick the sentence that no one should think that what is happening today is just a mere change of guards. I think, and that is the one I want you to underline, I think it is a fundamental change in the politics of our country. That's what he said. After that statement, he said, it is going to be my role to grow constitutionalism and democracy in this country. And I want to assure you that nobody again will take Uganda to where it has been. However, I want to argue that it's now 38 years. And public debate does not exactly point to what Museveni promised on that day. While Museveni's regime has been credited for a number of things which he was talking about, we argue and think that those things notwithstanding, the type of things that he promised has never come to pass. I want to invite people to read this chapter, and when you read it, you will understand that even the constitution that she's talking about never was, because that is part of the biggest problem to this country, the constitution, when you read this paper. So I will base my few words on that and say, number one, when you look at the 10-point program, let's begin with the first thing, because when you make something number one, in your whatever you do, it means it is one of the most important things, democracy. Because once democracy is okay, I think he was relying on what Nkrumah said, seek ye the political kingdom and the others will follow. So democracy was one of the challenges in the country. And for me, if the country had continued without election, maybe it would be better. Because this country started receiving, or that program started receiving challenges when they introduced elections in 1996. That's when we really got to understand what Museveni meant by democracy. In fact, he has his own definition of democracy. His own definition of democracy is people having election and he has no opposition, or if he has, it is a weak one, like for our neighboring country, and is the one winning an election. Take democracy is okay in that case. And that's what has been happening in this country, that the democracy is there. They allow people, there is a process of election, as he said, but that election must be won by one candidate, and they make sure that that happens. I have discussed this severally here, that how do you do that? Is by involving other forces, military forces, and other underhand methods. That's what has hindered our election. In 1996, those who were in IPC can tell you what they went through. They were complaining all over the place, being beaten, being blocked, and people thought that it would improve. In 2001, now people started dying. People were dying, Kakoza Mtare and group were beating up people. The climax came in 2021. You cannot be celebrating of an election. Let's take that what government gave us is the truth, where you lose 57 lives because of an election. And these have not died because of an accident, but they have been shot by forces which even the government accepts that they were their forces. So that type of election shouldn't have been there. I just want to talk about three. The second thing is a self-sustaining economy. He talked about the economics. And our economics was supposed to be a mixed economy where we have a self-sustaining economy. Today, as we celebrate tomorrow, Uganda now has a debt burden of 102 trillions. So our debt is ×2 of our budget.
And the
Annual budget.
Yes.
And therefore, you cannot have a self-sustaining economy when you are borrowing twice
beyond your means.
twice bigger than your budget for 1 year.
Can I add something?
Yes.
I think it's important to note that Uganda under President Museveni has benefited from debt cancellation twice. One was under the highly indebted countries, poor countries. Another was under this Bono campaign for debt cancellation.
Yeah, so there, once the economy, the politics is not good. The economy is not good. You are now depending on China to almost provide everything. Yesterday there was a demonstration in town where people are demonstrating that how on earth, how can Chinese become hawkers in Kampala? A man moves from China, he's an investor, then he's hawking slippers around offices. There is a group of people who come, I think, from Turkey or Egypt. They come to my office. I've even written on it, please, hawkers are not allowed here. But they come. These are not Ugandans. They are hawking things in Uganda. So self-sustaining economy, I think that one is a problem. I know Major Awich will say that now we have a lot of commodities. They are all over the place, even in the jungles of Congo. They are there. Lastly, where I find our country problematic, and therefore we need to rethink about liberation. In fact, for me, I have always been thinking that maybe we don't have them 70s. We don't have them 70s of 2025 and 23 and 22 and 21. Otherwise, there would be somebody already in the bush to again fight. Because just look at things that were happening at the time when the president was going to the bush. He complained about vote rigging. He complained about abuse of human rights. He complained about so many things. I will not quote them, but I'll just, those two. He was wondering how an army man can beat up somebody without doing anything and people just keep quiet, that he saw an army man beat somebody in Chireka. Now, people who watch TV, beating people now is a common thing. In Uganda, people beat you up, whether you have done something or nothing, they beat you up and even kill you. So, lastly, human rights. When you talk about human rights, they are very fundamental in a country's being happy or sad. Major Awich, I don't know whether his study is not these surveys which are done by the people who come here to help government to beautify its ugliness. People in Uganda, there is a recent study, which 2023, which showed that the highest cause of death in our country is now suicide, where they were saying that many people are dying of suicide, and they linked that suicide to frustration, frustration of life. People finish courses, they cannot get a job. There was an engineer who committed suicide in Kyambogo University, an engineer last, I think 2022.
A student,
a person who had finished, and many others. And they were saying people are really, somebody has sold his land and the money is conned by another thief, he commits suicide. It was very high. So I would like to invite him to read that and show that people are angry. But as I finish, the president, what he has managed to do for our country is to help to, I agree with the Major Awich, have managed to maintain the state of Uganda. We have national security for the politicians and the other people. Of course, the local people, they are surviving by the lack of God. I mean, the lack from God. Lack, I mean,
Thank you, Doctor. I think we need to
so
get to
I
that.
feel that in that area they have tried. They have also tried to work with World Bank and the IMF and World Health Organization to implement their programs here, such as immunization, such as those things have helped us. Now we don't have as many problems as we used to have. So in that area, they have done well. But something to celebrate, I'm not going to be party to celebrations.
Thank you, Dr. Robert. Honorable Joaeph Ochieno from the Uganda People's Congress. How does the UPC view the progress of the NRM in the last 38 years?
They are the same.
This is one of the most sad days of my life when I look back. I have the privilege of having been born relatively early enough to have been not too young to see 1980 general elections, and old enough to have been here in Kampala when these NRA bandits were throwing grenades around town, and to have been around in 1985, and to have been around in 1986. 1985 NRA DP coup found me in the taxi park. I was on my way to Tororo, July, waiting to return in September, October to join Makerere University. The 1986 January 25th, 26th NRA day, I saw the Kadogos. They found me in Mitchell Hall. Little boys, basically, children abused by Museveni and their group coming to take over Kampala. What I reject is the idea that before 1985, Uganda was a failed state. From 1981, and I'll invite Robert and others to go back to look at the programs and to talk to their parents, because this guy is predominantly young. The efforts of what government had done, UPC government from 1981 to 85, June, July, notwithstanding the NRA torture in Luwero and in Kampala throwing bombs, that the economy of this country was restored fully. The infrastructure programs of this country were restored fully. Health services restored fully. Agricultural services restored fully. New schools founded. New health facilities founded. This country was fully restored. The only part of Uganda that was impenetrable was a core part of Luwero. In fact, UNLA squeezed these guys to a particular part of Luwero, to the extent, therefore, that by July 1985, had it not been the deal between NRA and DP and a few guys in UNLA, many of these NRA guys had already sought asylum in Congo. So Uganda was not a failed state. Uganda became a failed state from July 1985. On that Saturday, when looting took place, and the following day, actually Sunday, I walked from Old Kampala coming to the city center. In fact, we reached up to Kampala, Kampala Road, Bomba Road, Kampala Road. And yes, Kampala had been looted. And it was a mess. From that looting, we had the militia of NRA, of course, they're within range, militia of UFM, militia of breakaway UNLA. We had about 7 different militias. These are the militias, the Museveni militias, that fought amongst themselves, leading to the July 19, to the Nairobi peace jokes that Museveni deceived his fellow Kelos, took them to Nairobi when he was busy recruiting, particularly including from Rwanda's refugee camps in Western Uganda. So Uganda was a failed state between July 27th and January 1986. Any time before that, it wasn't, and never was. But I also want to concede something, that between 1966-67, when the issues within Buganda happened, you could say central government struggled with aspects of Buganda in terms of historical since independence. Beyond that, it is under this Museveni NRA regime when 1/3 of this country was a concentration camp. For 16 years, Dr. Ojambo, for 16 years under Museveni, this guy's regime, 16 years, most of northern and eastern Uganda were uncontrollable camps, genocide and crude atrocities, including massacre of people in Teso. So what stability can we talk about under this NRM for 38 years? What is relative stability by Mr. Museveni and his bunch is anything by and large really from the latter part of 2000s, granted, to date. But to put this in context, and I'm getting tired every now and again, the nonsense that 38 years of stability, Uganda was a failed state. It wasn't. The failed state was under NRA, part of UNLA, DP, July 1985 to 86. Yeah, these guys, terrible record. That said, anyway, I want to say that I find it very difficult to find any tiny little credit I can give these guys. As Dr. Ojambo rightly said, Museveni claimed he went to the bush because the election had been rigged. And Sarah and other lawyers, unfortunately, this guy here is now so biased because he's an entire school guy, you know. I can't depend on his legal rigor to ask Mr. Museveni to show cause for having gone to the bush on the basis of rigged elections. Because the 1980 general elections were not rigged. It was not rigged. Milton Obote asked in the notes on concealment of genocide in Uganda, a text he wrote in the early 90s, 1991, I believe, in Lusaka, that for 4 years, Mulenga, all these DP guys and NRA guys had taken key positions under NRA, and they had failed to show evidence where elections had been rigged in 1985. But to put context, Museveni went to the bush within 6 weeks of the elections in 1985. He didn't go to Mbarara, to the High Court, to High Court in Mbarara, or did he come to Kampala? The nonsense that Museveni, graciously, there's a video doing the rounds, and I need to make that Museveni should be made a field marshal today, you know, because of his contributions to NRFA.
But he's not an army man.
To be fair, he's carried guns anyway, so whether that qualifies him or not. You know, there is no evidence that Museveni was necessarily a tactical fighter in Luwero. But number two, I genuinely don't know. And in fact, that video claims that this guy is such a great, you know, miracle fighter that he went to the bush with 27 guns. One, Museveni did not go to the bush with the 27 guns. There were more. Museveni did not go to the bush with the 42 people. There were more. They're in thousands. You know, these are things, again, for some of our texts. And they're out there. These guys, Museveni went in, they were, you know, jokes, and the Tanzanians were coming here towards Kampala. You know, Museveni was busy going, the Mbarara axis, the other side, trying to recruit young little boys to prepare him for his fundamental change in Uganda and the extensions in Rwanda, Burundi, and Congo. Basically, the program they've got today. That's what Museveni did. So Museveni actually, in the military terms, is actually effectively a coward. You could possibly say it like that. So to suggest that this guy miraculously did this and then went through elections and, you know, UPC defeated, won elections and denied him rights to elections. No, it's not. So anyway, 1980 elections, UPC won, DP lost, Museveni lost very badly. Fast forward to where we are. That said, of course, Comrade Awich will normally say that, well, you know, they've already been, so they've been here. We're not going to change. My real sadness, though, beyond the absence of any credit to give these guys, away from the fact that, you know, 50% of some of the arguments we make would be to make sure that we take them to Luzira, is the lack of apparent commitment from a younger generation of NRA guys like Comrade Awich, who recognize the mistakes that they made, the mess in which they put our country, and that
so Comrade Awich is the younger generation.
Yes, yes, no, Museveni is the other mistake. You know, people who simply say that, no, you guys, we tried for 38 years, we failed. And like Sarah said, these guys have had all the opportunities. IMF, World Bank, they gave the money, debt relief, they gave all the money. The money is the projects, the programs UPC built in this country, they sold all of them to themselves, they enriched themselves. In other words, these guys have had enough time to make several mistakes several times, and they're still here. Real thing is, there is no evidence that after today and them chest thumping, that there's a commitment for any change of direction for us to be able to move towards a national consultation, a national conversation in which you're able to to look at Uganda post an NRA. Not Uganda without NRA, UPC will have said this, but post an NRA in which the Ugandans generally have ownership of the political process, so that we're able to go ahead and revisit the economic mess that they did, look at the beautiful things that UPC had, and many other new parties that have emerged, maybe they go to other new programs that we can put on economically, but also including in terms of politics, the new politics beyond the monolithic polity that NRA has shambolically presented.
Thank you, Honorable Ochieno Joseph, for that. Major, when you listen to the other three panelists on the show, Honorable Ochieno there talks about how the NRA and a couple of other militias created havoc in the city, establishing a failed state between July 1985 and 25th January 1986. I want you to speak to that, but also Dr. Bireete here and Dr. Ojambo did talk about the Constitution and how the NRM has behaved around the Constitution, changing its structure and a couple of safeguards for leadership in this country. Is the NRM happy with the structure of the Constitution we have today?
Thank you so much. The issue of the failed state, the issue of the Constitution. First of all, I'd like to appreciate especially the two colleagues. On a number of occasions, they conceded and accepted things which are done, the positive things. Because in the past, we have a tendency of blanketly rejecting everything. But at least that is many steps in the right direction. In the long run, they will see light and accept all that I've said. But for now, thank you for the little. Failed state indeed was there. 1985, Naklabia was controlled by this army of Moses Ali. Gaba side and Muyenga, Fedemo. And then you find the Bugolubio where Kaira. And then the city center, this of Tito Kelo. And you could not pass from one area to another. It was chaos.
Was the NRA responsible for that chaos?
It wasn't. It was the mess created by the previous weak government that was overthrown by its own army, which army itself was too weak to clean up the mess. In an attempt to clean, instead of cleaning, it cowardly invited everybody under no guidance. NRA had integrated forces, okay? But NRA, even when the integrated forces, you are taken to a reorganization school and you undergo a whole lot of political education, as if you're in Changwanzi. One of such was in Kiburara, in Ibanda. And thousands went. So you couldn't just join without undergoing political education. Two, you had to abide by the strict terms of conduct of NRA, which had lots of penalty on death. You touch a civilian, firing squad. You touch this, firing squad. You touch. So it wouldn't do like what these people did, where they just, where the Okello, after overthrowing UPC did, calling the Moses Ali group, no code of conduct whatsoever.
Major,
so it had nothing to do with NRA.
Child soldiers, I think you agree to this. Were they also taken to these schools?
Come again?
Child soldiers who are part of the NRA. We saw them even at the swearing in of the president. When you look at the footage, there were children, babies.
The one going to answer is a very serious scholar in that area.
No,
Child
what
soldiers.
happens is...
But didn't he also...
No, what happens is this.
Yeah.
What happens is this. You're asking whether NRA child soldiers, where NRA Kadogos were sent to those schools. No, what happens is, as you join NRA, the first thing, whether baby or adult, you undergo political education. So the political education was for, this other one was for newcomers. For example, a mistake was made.
Was NRA recruiting babies?
Maybe an overstretch of example, but I just wanted to say recruitment regarding age, regardless of age, to join NRA before even you learn to shoot a gun, you learn politics first. Therefore, you could not expect an NRA who had already been politically inducted to be sent to that school. That school, for the army, it was an institution. True, there were political schools even in the bush where you do political education. Like Chankwan's didn't start today. It was there, mobile. So that was then for the NRA. But the one we are describing later was to say, if I was Okello, I took over power from Obote, and I'm calling other forces, I would tell them, you see what? As Okello Army, there's our ideology. First come to our school, which was never. I was telling you there was a mistake made in NRA, a battalion called 35th Battalion, which was picked from Fedemo. I don't know how they slept, they formed the battalion, all of this, they were taken to Namokora, the home of Lutwa. They were the first NRA to cause chaos. They killed people. And when they said NRA had killed people, we looked, I remember the CEO was called Matovo. Actually, they ended up killing Matovo with them because Matovo was from NRA put on them. So we said, what has happened? Namokora, there's killing. Checking to know it was 35th Battalion, which was not NRA, but now integrated as a unit in NRA. Then the express order was emphasized, please welcome former forces, but don't integrate them in your rank. Keep them in the barracks. If they are full of lorry, bring them to Kampala to reorganization. From there, after political education, they form battalions. Some are generals today. Some are generals today in UPDF. So that is what it is. So the confusion was the weak command on UNLA by UPC government led to the overthrow of the government. Whether he says it is a connivance with the DP or what, there it is. Because if it is not that weakness, can we now say UPDF connives with a party and overthrow and don't say it is a weakness on NRM? It would be our weakness.
Can I just
because
clarify something?
No, please. It would be our weakness if we allowed our UPDF to connive with another party to overthrow us. Okay? Would be our weakness. Therefore, even as the new weak group comes up, they fail to control the situation. So that is the statelessness he's referring to. Now, it existed, NRA had no hands in it. The other thing you are talking about is the Constitution. The Constitution was passed, adopted by CA, by, we could say, everybody, because there was a parliament called NRC. There was a debate whether or not this NRC should pass the Constitution. They said, no. This NRC, if you say to pass a parliament, who elected them for the purpose? Who gave them the mandate? They are elected under another mandate. In any case, these are NRC, NRM thing. So elect new things. That is when new actors like the Cecilia Ogwal came on board for purposes of making a constitution. They did it, and it was not in parliament, it was in conference center in Serena. The constitution was made. Now, as we all know, laws are not hard and frozen. Laws are amendable. Even in the constitution, there are provisions to amend. To show you that the constitution is amendable, in that same constitution, it provided for ways of amending. If it warrants what is called entrenched provisions, which can only be amended by a referendum, there be it. If there is any provision which is amended contrary to the provision, then you can accuse us. You can say, look here, we had entrenched this provision. Like, for example, provision that power belongs to the people. It is an entrenched provision. You cannot amend that to remove power from the people until you go to a referendum.
Which kind of power do we talk about, Major?
Power belongs to the people, meaning that people, the ultimate decision can be done by the people through a voting. That is power. So if, for example, you turn today, because many people have been saying that elect a president by a parliamentary system, our interpretation of the constitution is that that power had been reserved for the people. How do you change it now to do it through their representatives?
Going to change.
So the point is, there is outcry for the constitution amended. But I'm saying all over the world, even in America, constitutions amended, laws are not written on stones. they are amendable, and they have been amended. Now, I want to make a few other clarification.
Briefly, Major.
Yes, because a lot of things are saying about the murder. It keeps coming up and again. Government has made it clear that those who killed in the killing that was cited were sentenced harshly, others by court martial, to 45 years in jail. Others are sentenced to death. The killing that took place in a Wanegea police and the one which took place in a Rubaga, because these were known. The government is saying, we didn't do this, but should you have any evidence, please come up. I'm waiting for the evidence. The other thing is, there's this overarching comment that I keep happening. We tend to repeat that when good things happen, except for the conceding now, when good things happen, we think it is natural, it should happen anyway. But when NRM stops bad thing from happening, it is not recognized. In other words, good things happen naturally. Bad things happen because of failures. Where there's a failure, it is NRM.
That is it.
When there's success, it is not NRM. For example, if you have Batoro and Banyoro living peacefully in the region, that is natural. Government has nothing. Government has not maintained law and order. But if there's fighting in Apa between Madi and Achul, NRM has failed. So I like to say nothing happened in the country in a vacuum. Every aspect in this country is covered by legislation, by supervision, by monitoring. I can even dare say, even the oxygen we breathe. How? When government talks of environment, let us protect environment, it's actually saying, let us have good oxygen. So let us remove ourselves from thinking that good things happen by itself and bad things happen on. Do I need to say about that? America has more debts than any of us. Japan has more debts. Somebody said that maybe I cannot be now, I'm biased about not telling the truth of Doctor, I like to also to remind that I'm also an advocate of the High Court, and part of the vote that you take on enrollment is that you swear to tell the truth.
Sure.
And in any case, we should guide court for justice. So remember that apart from being a political actor in the party, I'm also an advocate of the High Court of Uganda, and I take that professional vote. So I endeavor as much as possible, and I do my best that I tell the truth. So don't fear. If, for example, there was any wrong with the movement, I'll definitely concede. I concede in cases of corruption. On many times I've conceded that we are indisciplined in resource management. I've conceded that.
Thank you so much. And we hope the complex.
I know we just have to go to, but this is very important. And it has to be for the record, because today is the 26th when NRA is claiming and using our national resources to celebrate really something for which this guy should be in Lowero. In 1985, the coup was a combination of NRA, DP, a section of UNLA with the Musevenis. On that coup, because I was the adult that was there and you guys were not there, when the announcement was made, a specific radio announcement was made on top of government suspended and parliament suspended and ministers dismissed. Honorable Yoweri Museveni is requested to report to Kampala immediately.
But if he was part of it, would you request him? He would already be there. Of course. The fact that you're requesting him means he's outside it.
Please,
you are calling him from outside.
Gentlemen.
Let me make this point. No,
please.
Without making this point, it makes the program useless, because we're discussing 38 years of NRM, and they came on allegedly this day by force. So I really need to make this point for 30 seconds. Let me say this. Museveni was invited to come to Kampala as part of the dubious crude military deal. He failed his colleagues because he was planning the other side. So to suggest that NRA was not part of the 1985 coup is a simplistic thing. Now, to suggest, therefore, that the UPC elected government with the UNLA, which was the national army, should be compared with the NRA, the army, and NRA, the military today of Museveni, is simplistic. This is a military regime, 38 years in power. You guys who've been living the last 30 years of your life watching on television, you can confirm. It is really, really not a regime that should be compared with UPC at any time.
Thank you, gentlemen and lady. Thank you so much. And thank you, our viewer, for keeping with us. So this time we're heading into a very short break and we shall be right back.
National Water and Sewage Corporation is committed to providing cost-effective, clean, safe and reliable quality water and sewage solutions in urban centers across Uganda. National Water and Sewage Corporation reaffirms its commitment to 100% service coverage, geographical expansion, infrastructure development, water quality, pro-poor initiatives, customer care and stakeholder engagement, catchment and water source protection. Be a water hero. Pay your bills to zero balance. Report all leaks, busts, and illegal water connections to enable us serve you better. Reach us through our toll-free numbers on 0800 200 977 or 0800 300 977. You can also communicate with us through any of our online platforms or visit the National Water and Sewage Corporation office nearest to you. This message is brought to you by National Water and Sewage Corporation.
We're still on Uganda's leading freedom platform, the Civic Space TV, and this is the Citizens Church. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today we are taking stock of the achievements of the NRM government 8 years later, and helping us detail all that is Dr. Sarah Bireete from the Center for Constitutional Governance, Dr. Robert Ojambo from Kyambogo University, Honorable Ochieno Joseph from the Uganda People's Congress, and retired Major Awich Pollar from the National Resistance Movement, who is celebrating today and tomorrow. Now, as we come back, the NRM happened to promise a couple of things, and Dr. Sarah did talk about them. The 10-point program revised to the 15-point program. I want us to talk about briefly those we think have succeeded, but also give recommendations or solutions to what has failed in that journey. Those we think have failed, how best can the NRM tackle them today in the few or very many years they have in power? I don't know what their plan is, and I'll start with the good doctor here, Dr. Bireete Sarah. Which points? You did talk about the democracy, that it has failed. You did talk about the economics and how it has failed. You did talk about the human rights and how it has failed. How best can the NRM government now change the trajectory and start scoring those particular aspects?
I think maybe to give credit where it's due, NRM has only succeeded in retaining power, in my view. They have been in power for 38 years. Before them, the second longest serving leader was 9 years of Idi Amin. So they have succeeded at that, getting power and keeping power by all means, because they are not keeping it democratically. If I may go quickly to make my scorecard, you look at the 10 points program. On democracy, I would give them 30%. Why do I give them 30%? The pillars of democracy include rule of law, active citizenry, efficient institutions, among others. I just want to score the 3. If you look at institutions and how they are functioning under the 38 years, we are under total state capture. When you follow the offenses that the South African Constitutional Court charged Zuma with for under state capture, sometimes you would listen and think they are talking about Uganda. Because the state capture of Zuma is a baby of what he goes through here. You know, giving deals to your people, monopolizing state agencies, taking over procurement. Those were the major offenses under Zuma for state capture. But in our situation, everybody waits for orders. If you run a poll today amongst Ugandans and you reach 80% of majority voters, and ask them whether anybody can predict what President Museveni will score in the next election. Everybody knows. We are 2 years away from the election. If President Museveni is on a ballot, he will be declared winner, whether Ugandans vote him or not. And I can imagine that his percentage now will be manipulated between 58 and 60, or from 55 to 60. So that is the election that we are going to go for 2 years from now. We cannot tell the result.
Why that percentage?
Because the Electoral Commission is dead. In the last elections, you go to the National Tally Center, you find 95% occupancy are armed men, the police, the UPDF, the prisons. They take 90% sitting of the National Tally Center. So as the Electoral Commission chairman, whether it is Chugundo Byabakama, it doesn't make any difference. As they are reading the results they've been given, all the people in their military regalia are just watching. In case you do otherwise, you can imagine what would happen. The citizens whose power in courts belongs to are nowhere in this process. Not at least not at the National Tally Center. In the last election, there is a clip where Byabakama read the FDC candidate had got largely a higher percentage of votes than what they were announcing. Then he read and then he talked to his secretary and said, "But is this true?" And he was caught on camera.
True.
So what
I saw it.
that mean?
I saw it.
What does that mean? The media asked him the source of results he was reading, and he looked on all screens and they were empty. And he started saying, "You people, can you display what? Fake results?" That is the nature. All this was on camera. That is the nature of elections in this country. Well, so when you go to, of course, human rights, I don't think we've talked a lot about that here. The rights belong to people who are within this country, are those who support NRM. The rest you survive by them. Those are the political rights. When you go to general enjoyment of rights, especially freedom of expression, association, and assembly, the only right fully enjoyed there is a religious freedom. That's why now the most powerful people is the Barokore movement, the church. They are the VIPs of the country. They hold the diplomatic passports. That is the only right fully enjoyed in this country. The academic right, when you go to Makerere now, if you are a bit independent-minded, your contracts are not renewed. The Makerere has been taken over by the family. You have the wife, Minister of Education. You have the Chancellor Makerere University, is a cousin to the first family. You have the Chair Appointments Committee, is a son-in-law of the first family. You talk, you try to speak your mind, yet the academia is a market of free ideas, of free thinking. But you try to put this in Makerere now, your contract will not be renewed. Who will renew it? Now it is like a private entity of the first family. So what freedoms are we talking about? When you go to number 2, security, security also remains number 2 on the 15 points program. National security, territorial integrity of Uganda, yes. We are not under any foreign attack by any army or any force or whatever. It's us who cross borders to pursue ADF. We have skirmishes of ADF attacks. Now in southwestern Uganda, we cross borders to fight ADF across border. But as we go to fight ADF, then you hear rumors of us being a part of M23. So you don't even know whether the ADF is an excuse to go and become part of M23. We hosted M23 here for a number of years. And how they escaped to go back to attack DRC, nobody knows. And they crossed borders with their arms when everybody was watching, with no agreement. Yet they were restored under an agreement with the UN Security Council. They were hosted here. And a process, including UN Security Council, to resolve the M23 controversy. But how they left here to go back and again attack our neighbors, nobody has ever explained. So as we go to pursue ADF, are we really pursuing ADF? Or we go for other things? And how come ADF is now crossing and killing people? So those are parts of controversy around security. When it comes to human security, we have chiefs, we have all other gangsters, Jambia that attack people at household level. So at household level, we are more of community volunteer security. Every village forms their own security. And I'm sure all of us where we stay, there is that mechanism of Ugandans guarding themselves. It is not the national security protecting people. So there is that gap also on security. When you got consolidation of national security, elimination of all forms of sectarianism, I want to refer viewers to the recently released Equal Opportunities Commission report that confirmed sectarianism, that confirmed that the majority of bosses in national enterprises come from the West, that confirmed that all Jewish jobs, most of them you have to cross Katonga, driving that side of Western Uganda. This is a report by a commission established under the Constitution and is an entity of government. I think that summarizes the state of sectarianism and nepotism under NRM regime. Yes. That's number 3. If I may stop there, other people can score the other numbers.
Thank you. Dr. Ojambo, you normally talk about the security and very many things have gone wrong. Talks about the ADF, you talked about suicide in the country, you talked about poverty as an element of security. How does the NRM turn this around to make sure Ugandans are secure?
Yeah, security is a very complicated concept. And unfortunately, security in Uganda was summarized to sleeping at night. Because I used to hear a phrase, tweva katulo. That is a very narrow and myopia type of understanding security. In world security today, things have really changed to an extent that every item in society affects security. He was proud of so many increase in population and so many kids. One would go further and ask, what is the quality of the population? If you have a population where 70%, 30%, I don't want to use a word here which will annoy people, but they are really people who are living by chance. If they have gone to school, they have not studied to get skills and knowledge to get to earn a living. Therefore, they earn a living by doing certain things that is going to threaten security. I've been telling people that the earlier we supported public education so that many children can get better education, equip them with the skills and knowledge to empower themselves, the better. The more we promote government schools for few rich people to be the ones, these days they have even moved out of private school. They are now going to international schools. They are going to create very few privileged people. But you see, resources are limited, and these guys are not stupid. They know that the resources that you have, the focus, the what you have, is supposed to be their own. On these roads in Kampala now, you cannot move from Muntinda to Kamocha calling on your telephone, and you reach Wandegea calling. The telephone will have gone. If anybody wants to, if you don't have soldiers, just demonstrate, you will see. In fact, on corners, many corners in Kampala now during jam, that is the business of young people. The other day I was coming from here, just as I branched and went to Kabaka's road there, just dropped in her office. Then as I was going up there in a jam, a boy came and picked my mirror.
Side mirror.
Side mirror. And went with it. I saw him. And I had nothing to do. Because do I leave the car and chase the mirror? I said, you go. I even don't know what you are up to. So I had just to tell somebody to bring the mirror the next day. That is what we mean by security. For you, this thinking that security is where you have soldiers around you, the mere fact that everybody now, to be safe on the road, he must be under guard of soldiers with the sharpshooters. A pastor must have SFC as his bodyguards, and everybody, bishop, imam, every sheikh in this country, sheikh, has a bodyguard to guard him. That shows that there is no security. Because a mere fact that something happens and maybe these soldiers say, we are no longer going to provide this, we're in trouble. So for me, to tell you the truth, to agree with the Sarah, national security, which looks at our boundaries, it looks at our state apparatus and the people who function in the state. You cannot touch Major Awich. If you want to risk there, you will be told where you are supposed to be. But a normal human being like me, we are in big trouble in as far as security is concerned. So to just give you quick, for me, I want to give you quick marking like a teacher on what Sarah was dealing with. There are 10-point programs that we need to judge. The 15, I don't know.
It's just
but for me, the 10.
It's just still the same.
Democracy, fail. Security, pass minimally with the 57. Consolidation of national unity, fail. Defending and consolidating national independence, pass. Building an independent, integrated, and self-sustaining economy, fail. Restoration and improvement of social services and rehabilitation of war-ravaged areas, we have not yet marked. Elimination of corruption and misuse of power, fail. Redressing errors that have resulted in dislocation of section of population and improvement of others, failed, if anything, worsened. Cooperation with other countries in defending human rights and democratic rights of our brothers and part of Africa. This depends on how you understand it. If we were to take her thing, fail. But if we are to take promoting dictators and other things in Africa, they have promoted themselves. Salva Kiir cannot leave. Our government will be there, pass. Following an economic strategy of mixed economy, fail. So you can count how many fail and how many passes. So for me, that's how I look at the 10-point program and NRM.
40%.
So you can judge yourself. And in these areas, I give fail or pass depending on the magnitude of the issue. I'll just explain one. Sectarian. The president himself is one of the promoters of sectarianism. And I have evidence to this. He had a lot of problems with the principal judge, and later the Judicial Service Commission. They would give him names of people depending on the performance. You know, in the judiciary, that's why I used to know. Judiciary is like an academic center. For you to move from assistant lecturer to a lecturer, there is a lot of demand. Like for me, I've worked in a university for 23 years. I'm just a senior lecturer. I'm just preparing to become an associate professor. And I'm contented because the procedure there is very rigorous and I accept it. All of us have accepted. The president later went on TV and was explaining why he has been rejecting these nominations from Judicial Service Commission. I've just used that as an example. Judicial Service Commission for positions of judges of the High Court, Court of Appeal, and Supreme Court. And he said, How do you only depend on these interviews? People come and they are just being asked a question. You do you know this? Do you know this? Do you know this? Then you say promote this one. We have to look at religion. We have to look at region. We have to look at gender. We have to look at. I said, look at the secretarian.
Caddership.
I said, look at this secretarian man. A caddership. How do you fit in the? So those are the things which matter. So in other words, the president
No
wanted
merit.
wanted a judge who is not by merit, because for me, I thought a judge should be this person who should come and explain why he should be a judge. What have you done? Do they have a scorecard and they tick that and you become a judge? So for me, I feel that this business of appointing ministers, appointing people, depending on where they come from, which religion, of what gender are they, Sarah, you will forgive me here.
They are also qualified women.
Put the things
Saying gender balance does not mean
yes.
incompetence.
So for me,
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to kill this sectarianism, is the way
Meritocracy.
is the way UNEB used to be those days. UNEB of those days. And I'm a product of that UNEB. I did examination in St. Teresa Primary School in 1990, PLE. I got 7 from a church school in the village. I went to Kakireses. I did UCE and got a first grade. And then I did UCE, AE, Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education, and I went to Makerere University. These days, as I talk, today they have released the PLE examination, and I called my school very fast to hear how many first grades they have gotten. 0.
All right.
0. Why? Because now UNEB is just in fact it is a how does Malema call them? There's a word Malema you normally uses. It is just a group of people to promote a certain area of education. You will see private schools in Kampala, Mukono, Mbarara, and a few municipalities celebrating. And people are quiet about this. For me, I feel that is the first promotion of sectarianism. So if you want somebody from Kalangala, PLE will not produce him. UCE will not produce him or her. You have now to depend, what party does he belong to? What is his ethnic group? And yet for me, I thought that would be the thing. Look at our people have been complaining about our football team for Uganda Crane, and I've argued with them and say shut up because I know some football. People are saying, but this looks like Buganda FC. They're the ones who can play. Football is a game of excellence. When they just put for you a player there, you will know this player is better than this one, and you choose him. If he's a Muganda, if he's a Msamia, if he's which type of person, we don't care. We want the best goalkeeper. We want the best number 2, the one who is going to score for us goals. If they come from one place, that is their problem. For us, we should just make sure that the best is the one who is there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ojambo there. Honorable Ochieno Joseph, all the things we talk about here, the democracy, the human rights, the economics, the security, they rotate around politics and politicians. And you often complain that we have a lower quality of politicians in this country. How do we, and particularly the NRM that is in power, how do they ensure that Uganda has better politicians today and for the rest of the time they have?
After 38 years, NRA cannot do it. I think today Ugandans should generally be reflecting on the ship of charade that they've been taking, the ride that they've been taking through, the myths and lies that have been taken through in the last 38 years. And very quickly, very urgently, people should put up their hands and begin to have a very quick and urgent national conversation on how to turn around these things. In any case, I think it's not about lower quality politicians. I have always suggested that the issue is politicians and people in politics. In UPC, we are politicians. There are politicians elsewhere in other organizations, and there are people who are politicians, politically driven, out of the parties, But NRM is predominantly a military, monolithic thing around and surrounding Mr. Museveni, using politics. So we've got people in politics, basically using politics for their own gains. So Uganda will never, ever change radically under Museveni for the better of all the citizens. In fact, what my brother Robert was talking about is what ideally would produce politicians. That's what produced me. I came from Nagongara Boys, and I must say that I was looking through the results. I had been quite busy this morning. I'm going to check the details for results that came out yesterday for PLE, but I see Nagongara Girls, which is basically a convent school, thanks to the nuns. It has always been the best performing girls' school in the district. In fact, I met a nun the other day with whom we had a conversation. The next time I'm in Tororo, I want to have a conversation with the Archbishop and indeed with the headmistress. Apparently, people in politics have pushed them to now pushing boy children to Nagongara Girls rather than Nagongara Boys in other schools because they want their sons to go and do successfully well. Those ones that cannot come and bring
So
them
the boys sit from Nagongara
Yes,
Girls?
apparently. And I took
they carry those certificates.
I took strong exceptions
They're going to be challenged.
to that. In my time,
Sorry.
I went to Nagongara Boys, as did Comrade Ojambo, and I excelled. In Nagongara Boys, my mother wanted me to go to St. Peter's in Toronto. I wanted to go to St. Mary's, Chikisubi. My headmaster instructed that I must go to Miri because it was the national school. In doing that, not only did we excel, I was amongst the best in the broader bouquet at the time, and amongst the best in the country, and I sat in the same class with the best in the country in Miri. But of import is that in that year, 2 of us came from Nagongara Boys to Miri, And if I look at my own county alone, I think we're about 4 who went to Miri. Meaning we're amongst the top of the top in the National League at the time. Talking about the greater bouquet that we could possibly include Comrade Ojambo. That is actually the reality today. Amos Jamwa, my late uncle, father to David Jamwa, went to Ntara School. He's my immediate neighbor, in terms of land, connect to each other. He went to Ntara School. He came from Rock Hill Primary School, and maybe he would have gone to Kisoko Boys or something like that. Meaning rural schools taking them to the best top national schools. Now, if we did that, that is what would be required to be done today. But NRM cannot do it because they killed it. And Museveni has got absolutely no interest because he privatized education, he privatized health services, he privatized everything, including the threat of privatizing the air that we breathe. So, on the basis of that alone, there is no way in which you can expect any change around. And in fact, thank you very much for having not asked me to score their 10-point thing, because that was a document of propaganda, which fails 100%. Because it was not, it was basically designed to hoodwink Ugandans. And that Comrade Ojambo says, the best of it was, but now we are sleeping. Those chaps, those mucholis, they destroyed our country. Oh, we used not to sleep. It is absolutely nonsense because I slept in Kampala and slept in Makere because these guys came. No, it's urgent, Philip, that after 38 years, that Ugandans wake up to the reality that they've been taken for a ride, that we regroup, we reorganize, we have a national conversation, in which we're able to review our history, review our past, critique UPC, critique DP, critique NRA, critique everywhere else, including the means period, and then to find very urgently a means and a possibility in which, maybe you can be then led by the Ojambos into the next generation in terms of leaders. But quickly, all these things are done because we're about politics. Politics about values, politics about convictions. Why UPC succeeded because as early as 1962, we came with a conscious program. Robert was telling me this in 2002, that their program was 3, ignorance, poverty, and disease. And he said, Joe, ignorance, disease, Poverty. So basically, we killed them. And you can see structural programs on health, on ignorance, structural programs on poverty, structural program on disease, building hospitals, building health facilities. And they're the only ones that exist anyway outside the horizons of Kampala today. Building schools, they're the only ones that exist up to today. Building agricultural institutions, they're the only ones that exist today. How Museveni managed to reach university? It was thanks to UPC program. In Museveni kind of today, I don't know what his father used to do. He claims to have been very rich. In Museveni kind of today could not have gone to entire school. He would not have gone to go beyond Barara. In others, in Museveni kind of today could not go to Dar es Salaam. Most of the young generations, and I still meet many of these young guys, many of them actually genuinely don't know. Talk about the cost of education. That all you needed to do was pass PLE. If you did not go to secondary school, go to any other post-secondary institution, it was free. Past O-level, go for your teacher training, whatever else it is, it was free. Past A-level, go to Kyambogo National Teachers or Technical College, whatever, it was free. Go to Makera, it was not only free, but you get wages, you get money, you get what they call boom, which I got as recent as the 80s. Finally, after that, jobs were guaranteed. Museveni got a free job in President's office, and instead of actually thanking the people, he was basically busy slapping them. Of course, there are witches who normally say that the population has expanded. Yes, the population has expanded, but it also has to be commensurate with the economy. That to the extent that even if you did not say that the job capacity today would not necessarily need to be 5 times, at least let it be 4 times. But it's not. But anyway, that's really the situation.
Thank you, Honorable.
Yeah.
I need to cut you short. Major, you see when you look at the scorecard given by Dr. Bireete here, given by Dr. Ojambo and the Honorable Ochieno there's a lot to do by the NRM, and you have 2024, 2025, heading into 2026. How is the NRM trying, and how is it planning to improve its scorecard in the 2 years?
The scorecard and how we plan to improve. First of all, you insistently gave this question. You thought you were being fair, or you thought my colleagues would be fair to advise me how to do it better. Either they chose not to know the question, or they chose to ask their own question and answered it. In fact, I was guarded and fearing maybe that they would advise that the best way you should do is to leave power.
That's correct.
But they didn't. So they chose to ignore your question. I thought they would have told us, please, on corruption, you arrest and prosecute. Please, on this and this, none of them answered it.
Do you need to be told that?
But that was a question. So if you think his question was idle and redundant, then we may as well have no need of a person asking us questions. But it's a question, you either answer it or not, but you chose not to. Anyhow, I want to make a few comments. I'm very alive to your question. On human rights, it has been made that first of all, scoring. Of all the issues on the score, we can't get 100%, but we can get 80% on all, except corruption. I will give 48. That is a failure. Why? The 48 I've given is because attempts have been meant to put institutions. The laws to prevent corruption is there. The institutions like IGG is there. Even the corruption court, anti-corruption court is there. The other time I said we should even build corruption prison. So institutional framework, including investigators, prosecutions, and judges are there, and the laws. But still, this disease has insisted. So for that, I would give ourselves 48%. Indeed, I cry we do more. But the rest, I give 80%.
Major, briefly, you give 80 to democracy in this country.
Yes.
You give 80 to the economy of this country.
Yes. On the economy, let me tell you, if you're assessing the progress of NRM, remember NRM took the economy where beer, which you advertise now on radio, which you even sponsor tournaments to promote beer, they would sit on a locate. Bushenyi, we are giving you 200 crates. Kitgum, we are giving you 150. And yet Kitgum has to buy.
That is not
Goods
economy.
were not there.
That is not economy.
Salt was lined up. What is economy? Unless doctor is saying economic is the percentage of GDP, but for me, I'm taking economy, the well-being of a person. What can he eat? What is on the table? What can he drink? If the doctor wants to academize it, that the economy is not what you eat, what you drink, what you dress, no. Then his is the GDP, and those figures are for universities. But for me, I'm saying the economy that we picked, even beers were allocated for sale. Sugar was under the bed. Salt was under the bed. There was nothing. This supermarket that you see, there was no adverts. Who advertised what when there was nothing to be advertised? Smuggling across the border was order of the day. So for economy, please, 80%. Except corruption. If you wanted a particular thing, you doubt 80%, ask me. But because you seem to have doubted the economy, I think I've cleared you. Human rights. Human rights, colleagues. It's one thing to just mention human rights, but the world has institutional framework of assessing human rights. Human rights are captured nearly in all domains, and they are captured under treaty bodies. The right to this, the right to this, the right to that. Even the civil and political rights that you take in Ojambo, there's a convention for it. And Uganda reports to UN, and it is marked like the way Professor is marking. In all the reporting to treaty bodies of Uganda to UN and the reporting to Human Rights Council, there's nothing extraordinary bad that Uganda has scored. The reports are there even on Google. It is called Concluding Recommendations on Uganda, what UN has assessed Uganda. We have done fairly well. We have done fairly well. So, but when we talk in layman term, in a street language, you say, oh, human rights, there's been violation. That I would like to assure you that the world has a marking scheme to human rights. Reports are done. And even in the reporting process, civil society make their input in what is called civil society alternative report. They say government make your report, but civil society also make your report. Then UN marks judging on what are the civil society saying and what is government saying. So we have done well in human rights. Now, on the 10-point program and how we do better, the question you repeated, 10-point program was captured in the subsequent annual budget, but over time, it was captured in the National Development Program because now we have regularized it in a way that you don't come with the gorilla thing and implement it as such. We are institutionalized in that we have a National Development Program and all these matters fit in there. And the National Development Program, we pick our manifesto from that because it is a grand norm for the plan for the country. So we pick our manifesto from that. And from the manifesto, we have annual budgets. So how we are doing it better? For us, we are doing it better because we have now institutionalized it therefore. So all these matters that you see, whether PDM or what and all this, is now inbuilt there. And we intend to do better, including item by item. If you talk of the war-ravaged areas like Luero or wherever it is, northern Uganda, it is inbuilt there. So for us, we hope to do better because we have institutionalized it and we have a monitoring system where we monitor and assess. The other thing is...
Let me just ask, since you have a monitoring thing and you assess, how far have you reached on rehabilitation of war-ravaged areas? You are at what percentage now?
I need to check the record by now because I don't have it on my fingertips. But if you consider the amount of resources put in each successive budget, like Luero, is enormous. Because Luero even had Luero has a ministry of its own, and there's budget to that effect. So right now, the best you can do is to go to the database of Ministry of Finance and see success. You can even say the last 5 years, how much money has been put. You can see a lot of money in there. Now, there's been a comment about
just
judgeship.
Before we leave that, Afanda Wichi, let's take an example of NUSAF 1, 2, 3. and the rate where you judged yourself that you have failed on corruption. Resources spent on a program is not an indicator of how you have rehabilitated the region because of precisely corruption. So we need to assess from the results on the ground, because 50% or more of your resources are stolen the way ministers store Karamoja and shit.
Okay, if it is a matter of indicator to assess, be it, but me, I didn't want to go into detail. I said the nearest you can go to how much has been done is the attempt in budgetary. But of course, I have earlier laid a disclaimer about corruption. So if you want another scheme, for example, in northern Uganda, you can devise a scheme. For example, you may devise like Northern Uganda Rehabilitation 1, it was infrastructure. How many schools were built? How many hospitals were built? How many bridges were built? You can do your scale. The scale is up to you, to how much. But what I'm saying, a clear record that could manifest at least the commitment on government, to measure the commitment of government,
You see,
is
Major,
the resources put.
Is it not a contradiction when you score economics, security, democracy at 80, but you score corruption at 40, and you know that corruption affects all these other points? How do they get an 80, yet what determines their success is at 40?
It is
Thank you
clear.
very
For
much.
example, you see, when you talk of economics, and if you think there's a contradiction with corruption, remember we over time came to operate a liberalized economy, a private sector-led economy. So how will corruption be an effect or an impediment in a private sector-led economy? For example, if a person has invested in production of soft drinks on the road to Kawanda and is producing his soft drinks, and it is there in the shelf in the supermarket, and we know as economy, if in a private sector where there used to be no sugar, Lugazi belonging to an Indian is manufacturing sugar, what does corruption have to do with it? If somebody is manufacturing juice and it is in the safe and being sold, what does corruption have to do with it? The economy is a private sector-led economy, and therefore whoever is managing with money. Do you see any contradiction in a private managed economy vis-a-vis corruption? When you are managing your affairs, all we need is, are the goods there?
Major,
Do people look for sugar,
Major,
or they get it?
Major, if we keep it at that, the juice in a factory is transported on a road that is constructed by government, and if someone ate that money, therefore the juice will not move. There is a government agency that collects tax from a company that is producing the beer. The workers at the factory go to a hospital that
now
does
the
not have
economics.
medicine.
The political economy.
Everything is corruption.
So have you heard that sugar produced in Lugazi has failed to reach Lira because
Philip,
of corruption?
Let me give you information.
Have you heard that Kigum or any part of Uganda now lacks sugar because there's corruption on roads?
At what cost, Major?
Let me give you information.
You see,
You know,
Briefly, a minute.
Major, I like you. You want to simplify things, but don't again oversimplify, because it will make you.
because you want to academize it.
No, there is no way you can avoid academics in life. Corruption, the president himself has complained that why he has failed to industrialize Uganda is because of corrupt individuals. And because of that, he has even put agencies in his office to try and check that corruption. You remember the Nakalema?
I hope the intervention is
committee
short. The
and
intervention
others.
shouldn't be a submission. It is my time.
The president has complained that money is put in place to promote his liberal economy, but they are gatekeepers who are in these ministries who are failing these people to proceed. That has been as his excuse, which we don't agree with.
That is why I put it
Which
at
we
a
don't
failed
agree with.
percentage.
So for us, when
That's
we
why I
talk,
put it
when
at
he's
failed.
talking about his soda, he's obsessed so much with drinking soda and beer. And he thinks that once
don't take alcohol.
he's drinking beer and soda, the economy is fine. The economics of a country is a broad thing that looks at total output vis-a-vis total expenditure.
Thank you, Major, as you conclude.
You see, first of all, for doctors' purposes, I don't take alcohol, not even wine. And for your information, I have lived in Switzerland, the headquarters of wine.
But you are very
And
obsessed with
and
beer.
I was a judge in Switzerland, where I'm invited to all embassies for parties. I never took wine, or even
if
for
you
a
don't
whole year.
take,
So I
it's
don't take
okay.
it. So I don't want
It's
anybody
okay.
to mistake me for
It's
taking.
okay.
I don't. Now, please, I still insist. In fact, some people think one way of fighting corruption is people to manage their private business, because corruption thrives mainly in social matters, matters of community, matters of the state, matters of the public. If you have your own thing, you manage better. And therefore, economy, which is basically, instead of academizing, ability to have goods for our needs, has survived partly because it is managed by private individuals who guard their product, who guard what they produce, and who guard what they sell. And that one has nothing to do with corruption. So there's no contradiction. The other thing I wanted to comment about is, oh my God.
Sorry, briefly, just for the benefit of viewers, the
Please.
same government that which is speaking for with good things about private sector is introducing a monopoly of government through the fuel company.
Uganda National Oil Company.
So what is the
Please.
ideology?
Major,
I don't have time to answer.
Liberalization
Now,
was abandoned.
considerations for the role of, for judgeship. I also feel I should comment on this. The doctor says the president commented about this. You see, the president sits at the commanding height of this country. If you consider your rights that you say, 20 Catholics come and they are good judges. They studied in Kisubi and went to Makerere. And it would be the same Ugandans who will come and cry, you have not made our judges. So the president at the commanding height takes cognizance of all this. He has been there, he has seen it. You today say we have awarded all good judges are from King's College, Gudu, and they will happen to be Anglican. They passed. It is the very same Uganda who will be compared. No, they say discrimination. They have only put Anglican. So the president takes cognizance to be sure that averagely for anybody to reach that level of being a mere candidate of a judge, he qualifies. Therefore, if they do qualify, please try to harmonize the country in the various sectors that the country is. Try to make women there. Shut up the issue of religion, shut up the issue of regional balance. After all, the mere fact that he qualifies to be a candidate in a judgeship is nearly enough to be a judge.
Thank you, Major. And maybe for a direct question on that particular issue, do you then think the NRM government, and particularly the president who appoints most of the big officers of the land, has done a fair job in giving Ugandans a fair share of the national cake?
But you're asking what is already known.
Okay, we have jobs which are presidential appointees. You start with the cabinet. You start with the constitutional bodies as provided under the constitution. The president has done very well. It takes all due considerations.
Thank you so much.
All due considerations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you just give me a minute?
Oh, fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
Doctor.
The people have been talking about corruption here. For me, I don't even think corruption is a very big problem. What is here is obscenity. China is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. For them, even corruption is institutionalized. When they are going to do something, there is money. That's why you see there was that problem between this US advisor and so many other things. When they were putting money for projects in Uganda, they was putting money specifically for corruption. And many of us did not understand it. But in China, the beauty is that people who are given through that corrupt system to do things, they do things in a very good way. If you go to any town in China and you take 3 years, you go back, you are shocked by what you see. But in Uganda, we have what we are calling corruption, which I call obscenity, where they give an individual to construct things and they will never be there. He's given money, he's given a supplementary and another money. You know this woman called Pineti. Some of you may think Pineti was only given to construct a hospital. Bireete has been given contracts to construct roads. Bireete has been given money to start coffee development, something. None of them are there. Is that corruption or that is just another thing?
Thank you. Dr. Sarah, as the NRM celebrates the Liberation Day of the country, 26th of January, what should we expect from the civil society on that day?
Well, I don't know whether the civil society have been invited. This is a partisan event of NRM, NRA, NRM. But even on national events like independence and the rest, I've not seen invitations coming through civil society. So I don't think we are part of that. It would have been good to invite all sections of society on national events like independence, but we are never invited. So I don't think there is any civil society invited for a partisan event, which is tomorrow. My view of the 30 years of NRM, if I was to summarize it, President Museveni has kept himself in power using patronage, state capture, and political violence, including corruption as a means to keep the patronage network together.
And clientelism.
Yes, he himself bribes citizens, going everywhere with envelopes. At one time, I think he got overwhelmed, even carried a sack on his head, going to an event in Busoga on a youth day, brought money in a sack, head of state, violating all the monetary regulations of this country. So that alone is that's how they've kept themselves in power. If you take away the three elements of money, tools of violence, and patronage, NRM loses power. So for me, my call to NRM is that you cannot celebrate impunity, obscenity, abuse of human rights just because you are counting years in power. The quality of how you govern matters. So if they think they are overwhelmed to offer quality leadership to this country, they can step aside. We have 42 million people and we have capable leaders out of this 42 million.
This is a very sad day for this country. Very sad day for this country, and indeed, as Sarah says, this is a partisan thing, and your submissions were wrong. It's not a national liberation. NRA liberated themselves. They didn't liberate this country. NRA can generally, yes, celebrate the fact that it was a victory over their friends, with whom they came. They overthrew a democratically elected government, came in by force, and they've used that force to keep themselves in power today. Unfortunately, they've lived to the very minimum. They've not even lived to the very minimum of what was expected of them. For the people of Tororo, the district that has got not a single extra mile of tarmac, for the people of Nagongera, where the Maram road that my father used to supervise, the entirety of the sub-country, the roads are so bad, no two vehicles can pass today. I'm just asking that Mr. Museveni should have some kind of sense of humility and apologize, because in 1990 he told them that the road would be tarmacked, because under UPC program the road was supposed to have been tarmacked in 1989. That is Toro Nagongera Busole Road all the way to Butambala, Nagongera Toro Mulanda to Buesa Road needs to be done. So if they could do those ones, and if they could also have if they could just be a little bit embarrassed to complete the building of Kisoko High School, Mulanda Technical Teacher Training College, Kirewa Secondary School, Paya Secondary School, Barinyanga Technical School, Mahanga Secondary School, the schools that we built and founded within 4 years, founded as so-called third world school, Tata Road schools, and to date, some of them, more than 100 young girls, line themselves to go to a pit latrine. If they could do that, they would have at least cleansed themselves. But as far as Toro and Padola is concerned, it's a tragic day, because looking back, there is not a single thing any of our people can say is anything associated with the NRA that has changed their lives. In any case, their lives are actually substantially worse. You know what? Remember, as I said, to conclude, Remar, the conclusion is that after 38 years, Bukedi, my sub-region, is the poorest, on the basis of multidimensional measures when it comes to poverty ratings. So my sub-region is the poorest. And the East, generally, is also the least recipient of Museveni's patronage in terms of public services. So it's a very tragic day for this country, very tragic day for the East. And in any case, it would be a day for which we would be mobilizing these guys to take them to Luzira prison. But since we're not going to take them to Luzira prison, maybe they should go to church and apologize to God.
Dr. Ojambo Robert, as we look at involving all sectors of the country into nation building, what should be the role of the academia on such events, but also what should we expect from you people in the academia?
Yeah, the question is slightly broad, but I will really try to tone it down. The academia should be really the light of the country, like the philosophers did in the French Revolution and any other places where revolutions have been. That is if that is structured in the system of governance. You know, all things are determined by what does the governance or the people in power want to achieve. The people in power do not want to achieve an informed society, because the role of academia would be to inform society. The theme of this celebration is building a country that we all cherish. That is a fantastic theme. That is something that we should have been discussing at the universities, in all halls of our discussion. To how do we make a country that we all cherish? It's equivalent to the patriotic move in the country. It is just, in fact, that cherishing is the patriotism. You don't train people to be patriots. People just appreciate and become patriots. Nobody has told Catholics to always follow, Catholics and Christians generally, to follow the Uganda matters. Nobody has trained them. They are just told what the Uganda matters did for their church, and they say these are people we should name after their children. I mean, our children, they name their children Kizito, they name their children Charles and what have you. In Uganda, we want to do something, but we do the opposite. There is no way people are going to cherish a country where people have developed a tradition that now to be in a big office, and this is a report done by a government agency, you must be from a certain area of the country. What can academicians do on that? Nothing. You just need good leadership, which allows merit people to go in. To cherish a country, you need a country where you have social services. My colleague Major there thinks that allowing us to go to supermarkets to buy sugar and soap is something we should go and thank the president for doing. That is obvious. That is an obvious thing. Social services are slightly bigger than getting sugar and soap and what. Social services, number one is people getting educated. For us in academics, we would really want to promote education, because there we shall be tackling ignorance.
It's the equalizer.
And education gives you an equalizing mode, so that I come from away to my village, I sit here with Sarah from Bushenyi, with Ochieno from Mlanda, and Major Awich, who was propelled by the gun to State House. Don't you think I've never caught a gun, but here I am with him. So it is education. The last thing that academics can do, and which I want to encourage my colleagues in the academia, is to come on these talk shows and speak. Give their knowledge, because academicians have a lot of knowledge. They do a lot of research. Major which we only give here, because of security reasons and many things, we only give 20% of what we know about the state of Uganda. We know how much is wasted on buying ammunitions. We know how much is wasted in corruption. We know how much is wasted in bribing which groups of people to become. But to come here and give people, especially to give them courage, because for me, the only way we can build a country where we all cherish is when people are courageous to say the right things, which are wrong, and give alternatives. Which a day, let's just come here to give alternatives of what should be done. And you will hear me proposing that your office should be closed. Your office should be closed and instead promote the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because that is what should build our country. We shouldn't be having people using state funds to promote party ideology. They can do that quietly in their party without even coming on air here. So for me, I feel that the last thing is research. We need research-based solutions. Most of the things happen here by luck. I predicted that this parish development model is going to hit a snag, just like the other ones, because it has been given to the wrong people and it's not based on research.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robert. And finally, the celebrant, retired Major Awich Pollar from the NRM.
Well, the theme has been stated, building the country we all cherish. I think we're on the right track. We just need to consolidate it. And we have workable proposals that I had already said through a party manifesto and through the national budgets every year. So I call on Ugandans to remain steadfast. You can see from this forum alone that we talk freely. I know you are watching this from Germany, from America, from where. So don't be deceived there that things are bad in Uganda. You can see in the studio, I'm alone with 3 of my friends. Apart from dodging the question that was asked, I proposed to them what to do, and the doctor is using it on me that he will propose to close my office. Sarah said they will propose we leave office, and it was from me who said, you guys, I thought you were going to say this, and they're exactly saying what I told them to say. So we are on the right path, and the freedom of speech is there. Like doctor says, come and discuss. You will discuss. NRM is admissible to freedom of speech. You go back and you sleep, and the next Thursday you come back.
Thank you so much, retired Major Awich Pollar, and congratulations on the anniversary. Thank you so much, Honorable Joaeph Ochieno, for being with us today. Thank you so much, Dr. Ojambo Robert, for being with us today, and thank you so much, Dr. Sarah Bireete, the only lady on the show, for being with us today. It is the Citizens Chat Show on Civic Space TV. Remember, this is made possible by the Center for Constitutional Governance. Special thanks to the people behind the machines, Paul, Rashid, and everyone out there. From us, we say good evening, and may you have freedom always.